Okay friends, it's time to get started on our job. One of the first things you want to do is safely raise and support the front of the vehicle so the wheel's up off the ground and the suspension is hanging. The next thing we're going to do is move along to removing all 5 of our 19mm lug nuts and then the wheel. After that, we're going to go ahead and remove this shield right here. If you were to look along the front of it, you're going to find 4 plastic push clips. Let's go ahead and remove all 4 of those, and then we'll make our way to the inboard side and remove the 2 that are in there. Now, when you remove these, you only want to grab onto the outer portion. This inner portion is going to stay up there. Once you separate it, it should unlock. Let's make our way in here for the last 2. Okay, so now that we have the shield out of the way, we have a nice clear view of this entire area. Commonly, when people do something like this, they're going to replace this whole unit. If you're not, you're going to want to make sure you at least mark this tie rod so you know exactly where the sleeve needs to meet up again. I'll just take a crayon. You can use spray paint, whatever you might happen to have. Make a nice mark on this. Now let's continue on to loosening these 2 nuts. To loosen these, I'll use a 17mm to hold the bolt that comes through from the back towards the front, an 18mm to loosen each of these nuts. Just leave that on in there a couple threads. Now you just want to make sure you can pivot this. It's a good idea to use a little bit of penetrant on either side. Also, you're probably going to notice that you have a slot in this area. That's a great place to put penetrant as well. Now it's time to start loosening this. If it feels like it's hard to turn, you can use some long pliers. As we turn this, it's going to start loosening off of both of the tie rod ends at the same time. It's very important to make sure you release it from both tie rods at the same time, and when you go to reinstall it, it needs to be timed properly, starting on both tie rods at the same time. As I'm turning this, I can tell that it's moving this outer tie rod end further in that direction. Just keep that in mind. There we are. Now at this point, I would just fully remove this part as well. We'll give it a quick inspection. And now I'll just start it right back on there, a couple threads. Now let's follow this arm all the way down to the passenger side knuckle. Before we go ahead and take this off of here, keep in mind, this nut is the only thing holding the tie rod in the vehicle. So if you were to remove it, there's the possibility it could potentially fall. I'm just going to use a chunk of wood, and I'll put it in between this tie rod and the other. Now we can use a 21mm socket to fully remove this nut. All right. Now once you have that off of there, just go ahead and put that on a couple threads. We'll remove our wood. The next thing we're going to do is use a hammer. We're just going to give this a couple loving bonks and see if we can get it to break free. Make sure you have the nut in position. Go ahead and lift up on that tie rod, remove your nut. Let's get this out of the knuckle, and there it is, friends. Now it's going to be time to get ready to install our brand new tie rod end. Let's take this and put it in position up against the sleeve. Now we'll just go ahead and turn the sleeve, trying to screw in both sides of the threads at the same time. Double check it to make sure they're both going in at the same time. Very important. Now once it gets started a few good threads, we can make our way back down to that right side knuckle. Now we'll start our brand new nut on there. If you were to look at it, you can see that you have a neoprene locker inside of the nut. Let's start that nut on there. Now we're going to bottom this out and then torque it to 63 foot-pounds. All right, so at this point, I'm just looking for my marking. I'm getting pretty close. All right, that looks perfect right there. Now at this point, I typically like to make sure that the slot on the bottom of the sleeve is facing down. Of course, the alignment professional in the end is going to have to make proper adjustments, and they'll set it however they need to. Now at this point, we can continue on by tightening up our sleeve. Hold the bolt, tighten the nuts. When you tighten these, you want to make sure that the bolt area is lined up with the slot as it comes across. Let's get our shield back up on here. We're going to line up all 6 of our push pin holes. Once you get it lined up, go ahead and start putting in the push pins. You want to push in the outer aspect first. Once it slides into position, go ahead and lock it down with the center. Okay, at this point, we can go ahead and put our wheel back up on here. After that, go ahead and start on all 5 of your 19mm lug nuts. And then when we get the wheel back on the ground, we'll go ahead and torque each of them to 122 foot-pounds. All right, with the wheel back on the ground, let's go ahead and torque these. Torqued. Okay friends, we got our front end back together. What's left to do now? Now of course you're going to want to safely take it for a road test, listen for any funny noises, and of course get yourself down to your local alignment shop. Thanks for watching.